I don't know what that has to do with.
Welcome back to the Stockwell Rocher Show. I'm Jason Stockwell with RE/MAX Results.
I'm John Van Hall with RE/MAX Results.
And we have the message maven, Melissa DeLay here. And we have Stephanie Havel with Wells Fargo here. And Chelsea Sondland with Stockwell team at RE/MAX Results here. And we are talking about true perception, your true perception, I would say. But the question I wanted to get back to, just because we said we would talk about it in the last segment, is, and we kind of alluded to it and got into it at the end of the last segment, was the social media and email being the culprit of the demise of our communication ethics, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Melissa.
Definitely a major influencer. There are 30 billion legitimate business emails sent every single day. So we are overwhelmed by the need and the desire to communicate online, whether it's professional or personal. And social media has erupted in such a way that there are people who are feeling like it's controlling their lives. Whether you are sending a text message or an email or posting something online, the communication principles that are going to help keep your reputation true, and I always say perception is reality. And so perception and how other people see you, that's really who you are. Now, you can create and you can influence that, but it all comes down to how you communicate, whether you're writing an email or speaking. And mostly when you're writing, you only have your word choice. When you're in person, I can look at your eyes, you can see my body language, you can see my facial expression. So you can determine that I mean to say something nice, even if I didn't pick the right word.
Yep.
Over email, all you have is word choice. And so you see it, and you take it to mean something it isn't, especially if there's any words that are chosen that I would want you to work against. One of the words, in fact, Chelsea and I were talking about this earlier, that I always ask people to consider strongly before using is the word sorry. Mm-hmm. You know, we're big on saying, I'm sorry,
Don't
sorry,
say you're sorry.
I apologize.
So,
yeah, when I worked in a sales position at a jewelry store, what up, Shane Co? You guys rock. One of the things they said was to start out positive and saying you're sorry, even though it's a nice thing to say, you think, it creates this negative perception.
Yep.
But saying thank you for your patience is saying essentially the same thing, but it's picking better words.
Right.
And so when you say, like, perception is everything, it doesn't matter what, well, I mean, of course it matters, but it ultimately, if the perception is different, it doesn't matter if you mean well, it matters what people think.
Yep.
So wait, time out. I get told all the time that I don't say I'm sorry enough. So
Okay.
Melissa just told me don't
Now,
say this, that I'm sorry.
Here's what I said.
Don't-
Here's what I said. I said don't use the word sorry. Okay? So there's a big difference. Now, the reason the word sorry is so
In
controversial.
an email you're talking.
No,
mostly.
email or in person,
okay.
either way. The reason it's controversial, it has a negative connotation. Okay?
I can see
There
that.
are definitely places for it. So I'm not saying don't ever say sorry. There are places for it, and we could talk about those places, but it has a negative connotation. I believe it's because our parents forced us to say we were sorry when we were kids when we weren't really
I
sorry.
do that all the
I'm
time.
telling you right now,
All the time.
I do
You
not
did
have
something wrong,
yeah.
say you're
sorry. Say you're sorry. All right. And then
what?
what did we do? We said, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Right? And so we grew up with this negative
true.
connotation around the word sorry.
Wow.
The other
Mind
thing,
blown right there,
Yeah, well,
'cause-
wait, because it's going to go, your mind's going to be blown again. Then we have all of these celebrities that are being caught in compromising positions, and they go online, they go on camera, and
Politicians
they
as
say,
well.
I'm sorry. And then what everybody does is says, oh, no, you're not. You just got caught. And
Oh,
so now,
'cause
see,
that's
now
how
we don't believe sorry is authentic and it
Oh.
is real.
Yeah.
It's
So you can be apologetic, Jason.
You can be
and
apologetic.
forgive me.
And I apologize.
Oh, and I love, John, that you just brought up forgive me. And this is something now, not that I advocate for any sort of traffic violations, but if you're ever caught speeding, the word to use is, I know I don't deserve it. I know I was going too fast, but I'm asking for mercy. Because just like forgiveness, it's hard to deny somebody
Correct.
mercy. But if you say, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I was going
Yeah.
too fast.
Please forgive
Yeah,
me.
now,
They
now-
write that on your ticket that you said sorry.
Actually, it's funny. My
I know
brother,
that.
I know
from
you're sorry,
experience.
but here's your ticket, right?
Wow.
And the idea is to choose words that resonate more with your listener, right? If sorry has a negative connotation, I mean, you hear it and you're like, sorry. Now I'm sort of depressed and you're depressed. Stephanie, we're both sitting here going, ugh, I just feel icky and I don't know why. But if I say, look, here's what I needed to do. I needed to make sure that I was here on time, and I didn't prepare to make sure that that would happen. So I am going to change that because your time is valuable, and I want you to know how important you are. And if there was any way I could have been here, I would have done it. Now, did that take longer? Yes. But do you believe that completely? I was here on time, by the way. It's completely made up, but it's
Instead of saying, "Oh, sorry, I was late."
right, because that's just like I'm just gonna
whatever.
say
You flip it. You don't
right,
care.
Right. And so I just that's what I mean when I talk about word choice. It's not that you shouldn't take accountability for your actions. You absolutely should. Just watch the words that you choose and use words that are going to invoke authenticity in yourself and really resonate with the other person, as opposed to these catchphrases like "I'm sorry" or any number of situations that we could have with
Well,
them.
when we talked about, like, when you were saying, about starting a message, because I'd heard this a long time ago, to never start out a sentence or an email with "I." So, I might be sending an email to, Jason. Hey, Jason, I would like an opportunity to meet with you. I saw you, and
Yeah. Yep, and here's the thought process behind that. And we've swung the pendulum there. Originally, the problem with saying "I" was it seemed egotistic and all about me. And what unfortunately happened is then a lot of people started going to "we." And then all of a sudden, for a long time, people were like, well, who's the "we"? What do you mean? Are you trying to say that there was another person that wanted to say hello to me? And so it's not so much about not starting a sentence with "I" as much as it's about, I don't want people, when they write an email, to write what they want to write. I want them to write what the reader wants to read. And so everything should be about the way that the reader is going to be benefited, right? Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that I can't say, I hope all is well, or I hope your trip to New York went well, because the alternative to that is hope your trip to New York went well, and now I'm not using proper sentence structure. I want you to have a subject and a verb, right? And so it's not so much about avoiding using the word "I." It's about crafting a message and discussing with somebody something that matters to them, as opposed to it being all about you.
So I've had the pleasure of hearing Melissa say this a few times now, and hearing the story about how we are taught to write, and how that is how we are currently writing our emails, texts, and communicating. And it's in business, it's causing a massive amount of opportunity being missed, or appointments being missed, or sales being missed,
or dates.
In relationships,
Right.
it's causing. There's massive issues by it.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing that she said right there is powerful, very powerful for you listening out there. Is, and some people have it, and probably very few people. Marketers kind of are getting it because it's all the message they want for the person, right? That they're going to. But when like with average person like myself just goes and starts typing an email to a client.
Yep, and I'm
not necessarily writing it I'm writing it in how I see it, right?
Yep, and I'll tell you why you're doing that. The average person is writing an email the way that they were taught how to write when their language development skills were at their prime, in second, third grade. I happen to have a third grader, so I know she's learning to write, and she's learning to write the same way that all of us learned, narrative form. So when you sit down, you're thinking that. And the narrative form is about setting the stage and building the characters and giving all of the background information, and eventually you get to the climax, and then the story concludes, right?
Yes.
So when you sit down to write an email, the reason they're long, the reason they're drawn out, the reason the emails you're receiving are long and drawn out, and people are saying things like, so I talked to so-and-so, and so-and-so said this, and then the other person said that, and I don't know if you remember Jason, he's kind of tall, and he always wears a suit, and they're writing a narrative. And all the way deep down in the bottom of the message is the point. I call it burying the lead. And marketers and journalists know the inverted pyramid, where you have to start with what's most important and then drill down to lesser and lesser information. But we weren't all taught how to write like a journalist or a marketer. And even if we were taught in high school or we were taught in college, and that's after our language development skills are at their prime. So we're all working against this
What we've been
thing
taught
that's kind
for
of
decades.
yeah, what we learned when it was burned into our brains. So what I always tell people is when you sit down to write, go ahead and write whatever you want to write, and then go back and edit it and say, okay, what is really important here? And you'll find it right at the bottom, and I want you to pick it up and move it to the top, and then eliminate every single unnecessary word, because online readers tire quicker than they do in a print situation or in person. So they're just going to glance at the email, and if they see 4 or 5 paragraphs, oh, that feels like it would take me 20 years to read
How
it.
many
So
of
I'm
you?
getting
How
out.
many of you listening right now get too many emails? Think about it.
Oh,
and
I'm
and how many of you have a lot of emails that you meant to get back to and you started reading and you haven't gotten back to them?
I'm a skimmer.
Tons of it.
I
So
agree.
be in business, short, concise, and like Melissa said. So there's a lot more information here that we have to go over, but very, very powerful tips for you. We'll be back soon. I'm Jason Stockwell with RE/MAX Results.
I'm John Van Hall with RE/MAX Results.
Stay tuned.
Please use discretion when you're messing with the message man.